Hey, y'all. Jim Ronquest coming to you today from the DUPodcast studio in Memphis. We're going to have a big time, tell some old stories, and talk some duck hunting.
Can we do a mic check, please?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
I'm your host, Katie Burke.
I'm your host, Dr. Jared Henson. And I'm your host, Matt Harrison.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. The DUPodcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harrison, and today with me, we have joining with us again, Mr. Jim Ronquest. Mr. Jim is a true friend of mine and somebody I always enjoy getting to sit down with and tell hunting stories. And part of what we're going to do with the podcast today is do exactly that, is share some of our favorite hunting stories, maybe some scary hunting stories that we've encountered, but just hunting stories in general. But before we get into telling those stories, Mr. Jim, how you been?
Man, I've been good, buddy. Been busy, but I've been good. What about yourself?
Same, busy but good. You know, finally wrapped up duck season, had a great duck season, then got into show season, had SHOT Show, you know, NWTF, COE, had all the shows. So it's been good, but we finally kind of hit that little bit of a break, but now we got turkey season coming up.
Glooming up very quickly, a couple weeks off. You know, I used to really like February because it was slow. And then people would complain, there ain't nothing to do in February. Well, man, February's been a whirlwind. So I'm ready to slow down for a couple of weeks, maybe go catch some crappies.
I know it.
And start chasing some longbeards.
Are you excited for turkey season? Like, do you have some big plans coming up?
I do. I'm looking forward to this spring.
Where are you going to get to go hunt?
Man, I'm getting to go Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri,
Wow.
Wisconsin.
You need to make a stop in Mississippi.
I got a Mississippi invite too, so that may be. I may start off in Mississippi, so because they start earlier.
March 15th.
March 15th.
Yeah.
So that is 15 days away.
Good night. That's right here.
It's right here.
With the show, like, you know, used to you had that lull between duck season and turkey season that you're just like, when can I hunt something? When can I hunt something? Well, now with all the shows we have to attend and go to, you look up and like you said, we're pretty much in March and it's right here.
Tomorrow's first day of March and I'm ready for having a weekend to slow down. I'm tired of being in big crowds and bumping into people. I want to kind of breathe just a little bit.
I get it. I totally do. Well, talk a little bit about your duck season. How did it finish up for you? Was it a good season, mediocre season, not a good season?
You know, for me, it wasn't based on harvest numbers anyway. If that's not necessarily the fair way to put it. I had a great season in as far as making new friends and getting an opportunity to spend time outdoors. But harvest number wise was probably one of my slowest in the past several years. Some of that was because, you know, we just, you know, was kind of locked into where we were hunting, wasn't chasing ducks, going to them. So, you know, when it was slow, it was slow. When it was better, it was better. So we certainly had some highlights, but we had some off days too. And I think a lot of folks in my area there had, all my buddies, for the most part, were off a little bit. You know, weren't quite wide open. Now I've talked to some folks that's had the best season of their life, and you get that every year, right?
Yeah,
you'll get those folks that say, "Man, it's the best duck season I've had in 25 years."
Ducks.
That's right. And then you have other folks, man,
worse than 25.
worst duck season I've had, and that's just that we see more and more of that nowadays.
I got a question for you, and this was not planned. This was not pre-thought of. I just thought about it while we were sitting here talking. And on one of the previous podcasts in our year in review with Dr. Mike and Katie and myself, we talked about wood ducks. And we talked about if we saw a good bit of wood ducks, if we didn't. And a lot of people have tied that into the acorns. So acorn drops. Did you see many wood ducks where you hunted? Because where I did, I didn't hardly see any wood ducks, but Katie, where she hunts, she said that the wood duck saves her season. So did you see many wood ducks?
I did. I saw
Wow.
gobs of wood ducks in the fields.
Fields?
Yes, gobs of wood ducks in the fields. A buddy of mine that hunts in West Tennessee, same deal. Gobs of wood ducks. We had a field you'd pull in and you'd run steady wood ducks out of it. We had a tract of woods that had ducks early, but wood ducks early, but acorn crop in the Biomeda Basin was horrible. Red oak acorn crop was bad. So I think you've seen a lot of wood ducks move to the fields, at least in our part of the world. We had some stuff up along Cache River that had piles of wood ducks in them in the mornings. Now, you would shoot a couple, but they weren't really saving your season. But, boy, when you were going in the field or early in the morning, you'd run gazillions, felt like, of wood ducks out.
Well, that may have been why I didn't see the amount. You know, I hunted mostly woods this year, and where we were, we had a hunt or two, you know, where we're like, man, that's a lot of wood ducks. But I think it felt like it was a lot of wood ducks because we hadn't been seeing any wood ducks. But that's been kind of interesting to me, just kind of see what people, you know, what they saw with the wood duck amount, because
been several people talking about seeing the big piles of wood ducks in the field.
In the fields.
I got sent me some pictures yesterday of a property that they're looking at, and they had game cameras up in a couple of holes. I'm talking, it was full of ducks, but you get to looking at it, it's solid wood ducks across the hole.
In the field.
Well, this was in the woods.
Or in the woods, sorry.
But we saw tons in the fields too, just like crazy amounts of ducks.
That's nuts. Well, what about show season? Y'all just wrapped up NWTF.
Yes,
went
sir.
over there, had a good show, I heard.
Man.
Had some really cool products that y'all just released. Can you talk about
Man,
a little?
we did. And NWTF is such a, I'm not going to say madhouse, but there's a lot of people come to NWTF.
A lot.
And of course, I love to turkey hunt as much as I duck hunt, so it's a kind of it's a natural mesh. There's a lot of duck hunters there also. So, with that in mind, we launched some of our new BMF line of waders and jackets for fall 25 at NWTF.
And let me tell y'all, they are slick.
They're slick, man. There's a lot of people want to come look at them, touch them, feel them, smell them, try them on, you know, and everybody's excited about them, myself included. I've got to wear them this duck season, and we tried to test them out pretty hard. So far, so good.
Wow. Now, when will those be available?
Roughly around the 1st of July, 1st to middle of July.
Okay, so, I mean,
roughly speaking, I don't know the exact date.
For sure.
But that'll
sometime summer.
Yeah, that'll get you in the ballpark. Definitely by the DUX Expo, we should have.
Wow.
We should be loaded up.
I'm excited.
Yeah, man,
I'm
I am
so
too.
Excited.
I'm excited about what people say and think. And there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
look, there's a lot of good product out there. Don't get
For
me
sure.
wrong. But I feel we're in the game here.
No
It's
doubt.
pretty cool.
And you've done a good job with that. I'm not just saying it because you're sitting here, but you've really brought in some good ideas to Drake and implemented them, and it's been really cool to see.
Well, it's not just me. You know,
for sure.
The product team under Justin Carpenter and crew, that's who really deserves it. I get to sit at the table and talk about this or that.
Yep.
But the thing I like the best about them, and there's some folks argue it, I don't like zippers where I'm running my hands in and out of pockets, because your hands get dry during duck season. You're raking it, you know, you're bleeding, you know, whatnot. So we're using magnets in a lot of those kind of places, and we got some really cool attachment points and buckles. I think people are going to like them.
Them buckles are probably one of the coolest features to me on the waders. I got to see a pair in person, and like, you know, a lot of waders have plastic buckles, and they can get busted super easy if you taking your waders off and your straps to the ground. You step on that buckle and it busts. But these, the BMFs, they have some cool features to them.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Good deal.
I'm excited to wear them.
Yeah, I tell you that. Now I have worn other brands, and I have never had cold feet with quality waders.
Yeah,
I'm blown away by how warm the boots are on them. When we got cold, with a good pair of wool socks, if you were walking much, your feet felt hot, but yet they didn't sweat terribly bad.
Yeah. Huh.
But Justin and I commented on that, how your feet feel like they're smoking hot, but you take your boots off, you're not bad sweaty, you know. So that's kind of can be a killer with keeping your feet warm.
100%.
If you get them
start
too warm
sweating
too
and
quick,
get them socks wet,
you're done. You know, you're done. So I'm really pleased with them. The guys have done a good job. there's a couple tweaks for the final run, but I think they're going to be A-okay, man.
Wow. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're cool.
Well, now we're going to kind of dive off into some stories that
Story time.
Story time with
like
Jim Ronquest.
Oh, man.
Can we get a fire out? Can we?
I was going to say, man, the best way to do this is over a cup of ice and a fire.
Man, there ain't no doubt. Some of my just most fun times around duck camp is hearing stories. And I know I've had the privilege to chase turkeys with you, ducks with you, eat at Huddle House after an unsuccessful hunt with you. I've had the opportunity to hear some of those stories, but not everybody else is as lucky as I am to get to hear some of those. So I'm excited just to kind of talk about some of the stories you have to share with our listeners today. But one of the stories we're going to talk about is retriever story. I know that you are a big time retriever guy. Like you and you've had some really good dogs over the years. You've had some amazing dogs. And one of the stories that you have for us today includes a dog. So I'm going to give the floor to you to explain to our listeners one of the cool dog stories that you have.
Cool deal. And I got several on all my dogs, even my current ones. And I've been blessed, to your point, to have some fine animals. This particular one that comes to mind, I have told it before publicly. It's one of my favorites, and it one tells to a dog's memory and that they can think a little bit, you know. So little old dog I hunted all the time when we were in the guide business back in the Rich and Tone guide service days. We had one of our private places was a big old deadening. And it was pretty successful, pretty consistent spot in its time. Anyway, we'd been shooting ducks, and it is low water year, so it was mud. It's a deadening. It's a swamp. They're not easy to get around.
It's not ideal hunting.
But boy, ducks can like them
there
pretty good. So anyway, we'd shot into a bunch of ducks, and the dog I was hunting was a little master hunter female by the name of Katie. Her registered name was Buy Me to Katie, M.H. And neat little dog, all 50 pounds of her, and she was mad at those ducks. She was kind of a pain to hunt with because she was so excited she'd whine, but boy, she
was a hunter.
Yeah, duck hit the water. It was, my money's on her every time. So anyway, we'd shot into a bunch of ducks and sent Katie, and she's picking them up, and she's getting this one, that one she's getting, and she had a pretty good cripple chase, and she was one of the better cripple dogs I've had. She got a pretty good cripple chase with a mallard hen, and the water probably wasn't, I don't know, we'll call it maybe knee deep. Mud's probably another foot deep.
Oh, yeah.
And there was some brush and stuff there, and she picked them all up, and she went and got them, and she chased this old hen around. Man, I was surprised old hen was winning. Really was. That surprised me she didn't get it. And Katie come back, and I would scold her a little bit just playing with her, and she knew us. Miss Katie, where's that duck at? Did you let that duck beat you? You surely didn't let that duck beat you, did you? Boy, she'd cow head. She got up on the dog stand, and we shot a few more ducks and was getting close to finishing out. And I noticed she kept looking over there towards where she'd last been on that duck. And she locked in, and we was talking. I said, look at this silly dog. What is she looking at? And it kind of clicked to me what it was. She was locking in. And I finally just said, Katie. And she run out there, and she got right around the last place she was on that duck. There's a little old stump and some weeds there. And I seen her start pawing. And then she sat down. She kind of scooted up. She kind of sat down on her so she could use both them front feet. And she started pawing right there. And I seen her stick her head. Then she stuck her head down, and she pulled that mallard hen up, grass, mud, and all.
Dude, what?
That was crazy.
Are you serious? She
dug her out of there. She knew she was there, and she sniffed around, and I seen her sniffing. And when she eased back on them haunches and started pawing, I said, look at here. And she come out with it. That's probably, that's not necessarily a really high-tech mark or a really great blind retrieve, but that's knowing where one's at and having the confidence to go find it.
That reminds me of a story. The first ever duck that I shot, and hilarious story. We didn't have a dog at the time, so my brother was the dog, I
know how it goes.
So we were hunting the Leaf River, just, some bends in the river there in the Leaf River near Raleigh, Mississippi, and just chasing wood ducks. Early morning flight. We're out there at dark, set up. So anyway, here they come, buddy. You can hear them screaming through the woods on wood duck. So anyway, we have about a group of, 3 or 4 come in, and I'm about 8 years old and just boom, smoked one and boom, smoked another one. So I got the one, that was in front of us. Well, one had kind of, fluttered down on the other side of the river there. And we were like, well, we got to go after it. We believe in if it goes down, we're going to hunt it until we can't hunt it anymore. So anyway, my brother finds a log. We didn't have waders. We didn't have nothing. So my brother finds a log. He crosses the log, gets to the other side. Well, anyway, he had kind of did like Miss Katie did, just kind of sniffed it out, over there, of course. And he kind of found some feathers. Well, anyway, he saw where some feathers had went up into this blowdown. And this blowdown was a fresh blowdown, okay? Big old oak tree flipped up, still had all the mud on the bottom of the tree, and those little root canals go all the way up in there. So this was not wise, okay? But my brother says, I know that duck's in there. So anyway, he starts taking off his hat, his jacket, and he said, I'm going in that hole after that duck. And I was like, go on if you want to.
Good luck, buddy.
So sure enough, man, he gets about half of his body down in that. Reaches his hand in there, just pulls straight feathers. Reaches in there. Sure enough, that duck was in that hole, in that cavity. But it about like Miss Katie in there just digging out, trying to he came out just dirt everywhere. You'd think he was in the trenches. He was in there. But it was just funny, looking back on.
It's those kind of things are the things you remember. I can think of other really cool dog retrieves that just comes to mind. But everybody gets caught up in the how many a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Well, if you think back about stuff like that, something cool like that, you'll remember. You don't remember how many you killed that day.
100%. I could not tell you. If I'm not mistaken, we shot like 2. But that was my first ducks ever. And just to see my brother give everything he had to try to get that duck. But I have another real quick, cool story about after that scenario, my brother was like, I'm going to get us a dog, we're going to get us a dog. So anyway, we were hunting again near Raleigh, Mississippi. It was a little slough, though, off the Leaf River. Well, anyway, my brother got a dog named Belle. Lady Belle of McGee was her name. She had just passed about 6 months ago. But we were going to take her out. It was just me, my brother, and Belle. Mm-hmm. It was just us. And first ever hunt, sure enough, we had some wood ducks coming in right at light. I can't really see them at shooting time, but just dusk. You know how they get below the trees and you're like, where are they at? Well, anyway, I saw one, boom, smoked it. And here goes Belle beside us. And my brother's like, Belle. Well, it's Belle's first hunt. Belle couldn't see anything about like I couldn't, And anyway, started getting a little bit lighter. And I literally told my brother, I said, man, my luck, that duck's banded. So anyway, I said, I tell you what, Michael said, why don't you shoot over the duck, make a splash, Bella see it, and we'll send her out there. Said, sure enough, I did. Shot. Belle went out there. She comes back, getting up on the bank. Sure enough, a banded wood duck. It was her first ever retrieve, and the band was banded on that duck on 12-12-12.
How cool is that?
In Geneva, Illinois in 2008. And it was actually a write a letter to band, and it's the only one I've ever killed. So,
oh, man.
And that was her first ever retrieve.
That is cool.
It's a story. That's, again, I couldn't tell you how many ducks we shot that morning. But
you remember that band?
I remember it.
Yeah.
I remember.
Amen. It's the little things that go a long way, for sure.
No doubt. And you've had some other things happen during hunts that were not as enjoyable.
Still memory makers, though.
Yeah, but you've had some scenarios during hunting ducks that weren't that fun. And I've heard a story about a time that you may have lost your hat.
Oh, that was a tough one. That was a spooky one right there. So yeah, it's all because of probably my dog wasn't there. So Miss Katie was off training with my buddy Ron Lagarce at the time. And we were having one of them big days on the creek. Mm-hmm. We were shooting ducks. It was a big day. And I had been out around that swamp. I had picking up birds for everybody, and I was getting birds sorted out of who shot what duck and whatnot. And my hands are full, and I'm walking back towards the blind. So let's say where I'm at right now, my back's facing the decoys and the blind's up here.
In front of you.
In front of me. And there's guys over here, and there's 2 blinds. There's a dry blind and a wet blind. I always hunted in the middle. Well, I'm walking forward, and I see the guy, somebody said, be still. And I see some ducks lighting to my left. And I seen the guy in front of me, kind of about where you're at. Maybe a little bit further. Anyway, I seen him start to mount his gun. And I'm like, no. wham, wham, and I felt heat on my face. My hat fell off. I can remember dropping the ducks, and I remember just covering my face, just like that.
Are you serious?
And I just stood there a minute with my face covered. I remember thinking, gosh, I was afraid to move my hands away from my face.
You thought you were shot.
I thought I was shot. I didn't feel anything other than the heat, and my hat was gone. But I was like, I can remember thinking, okay, what's this going to be? And I pulled my hands away, and that's when you think you'd go punch somebody in the nose. No, my knees went to jello.
You probably couldn't even say anything.
I couldn't. I finally got to the blind. I got propped up there so I wouldn't fall down. And I had to sit there for a little bit to get everything kind of get back to working. And all the time, my ears are going, woo, woo, woo. You know, I was kind of addled there for just a minute. Everything turned out okay, and the guy thought he was shooting safe, and I guess if just close enough, I was feeling the gas.
Yeah,
and he was, I felt the heat, and there was just enough gas there. And may have jerked my head or something, but my hat come off. There's a little frayed spot right there.
God.
But that was probably one of the scariest moments I've ever had with a shotgun. I've seen some others.
Good night.
But that fella was bad wanting to shoot a duck. So once I got my composure back, the hunt was over for that day. All right, boys, we're gonna call this one.
And this is a great learning lesson for all of our listeners too. When you're any type of bird hunting, duck hunting, dove hunting, snipe hunting, pheasant hunting, quail hunting,
whatever,
it is so important to realize at all times you should know where people are, where your surroundings are, and where your shooting lanes are.
Amen.
A lot of people forget that, and and it's no knock whatsoever to new duck hunters. Please don't hear it like that. But like a lot of the accidents that do happen are people that have never been taught. They don't know. Like that guy, he may have been a well-educated duck hunter. He may not have been. Who knows? But one thing that we always make sure anytime we're hunting with somebody is if they're new is like we go through a gun,
safety speech,
and you may give it to them and they still don't take it.
It doesn't. I got, I guess what they call it, PTSD over it. So if somebody shoots that I'm not expecting the shot. I'm not aware of. I'm pretty jumpy. But if you swing across, man, I remember several times this year hunting in Pittsmore, I seen barrels coming and I just sat down. Reached up and grabbed my dog and I just sat down.
No doubt.
And that's part of it, I guess. But boy, hey guys, shoot your lane. 10 to 2, think where you are. If you're a right-handed shooter and you're on the left hand of the pit, sure, you can swing hard to the left. If you're a right-handed shooter, please don't try to swing to your right.
And that's really the case, especially if you're hunting any type of layout blind or in a blind itself, is most of the time you're shoulder to shoulder with somebody. So you're really and truly, your lane isn't that big. You know what I mean? Like
right.
You really got about 11 to 1, 11 to 2, lane to shoot in. And that's pretty much it. You can't really swing over here because odds are you got somebody there that's going to have that shot covered. So it's extremely important.
Right.
Once you kind of get out in the woods and open it up a little bit and you only have 2 or 3 people, your lane may widen up a little bit. But anytime you're shoulder to shoulder with somebody, goodness, it can be.
It can't. But fortunately, though, if you're closer, you got a little bit more barrel control there.
Yeah.
You're not as far in front of it. But you're right. It's easy to get yourself in a bind.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, moving on with some more stories. We've heard the dog story, heard the hat story, and one thing that most duck hunters have in their life is a boat. Most duck hunters have either ridden in one, owned one, have borrowed one, but they've been in some type of boat, and you have a story about a time that you were pretty sketched out.
I was.
While in a boat. So tell us that.
So to preface that a little bit, I spend a lot of time, used to, maybe not so much this year, but over time, I've spent a good bit of time in a boat in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, I can't swim a lick.
You swim like a rock.
I swim just like a rock.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I swim just like a rock. And used to be bad about not wearing a life jacket.
Those two don't go good together, Mr. Jim.
No. I'm trying to change my ways. But I grew up riding boats, running boats, and I never. If I get scared in the boats because it's a boat really small or we're in a bad situation. this was one of those bad situations. So this was back in the commercial hunting days, when we could commercial hunt on state and federal ground also.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a place we were going to that you had to run a really narrow slough. It was a man-made slough, to be truthful. It was a narrow slough come off of a bend in White River, and it had a pile of current in it. Matter of fact, when you were coming out of it, you could tell you're going uphill. And when you're going down it in the morning, for those of y'all who may or may not been around a lot of boats, you have to be going faster than the current to have any control if you're downstream.
Yeah.
So you can't run on step in this particular spot, but you had to be running pretty good with the currents pushing you.
You had to be on plane, make sure.
You had to kind of be rolling. And the boat I run at the time didn't have a breakaway plate. It's power trim. And I happened to knew there's logs in there, but typically you bounce right over them. Well, I had kind of slowed down. There's a spot there, and I couldn't see the log, really. And we had 5 people in the boat. We was at maximum capacity. And we run up on there. When the motor didn't kick up, the motor stuck.
Oh.
Now, the back of the boat is facing upstream. And there's all this water pushing on it, and a little bit of water started to break over the back. And, I had my boat balanced, and I kept my cool. Luckily, I had a really dear friend with me that's pretty agile, a guy named Jake Latondras, running the camera with me. Anyway, I said, all right, guys, everybody step forward. And water was just starting to break the back of that transom. And it's one of them deals, you might have just stayed hung on the log, but you was been bad hung up. And then I was thinking, okay, if this sucker kicks off here, we're going down.
Oh, yeah.
So we was able to get everybody at the front, get the motor raised up, and get off there with no issues.
Ooh.
But that could have turned into a way worse situation if you wouldn't have been that far up, or you let all that water come across the transom and you're done.
And you don't realize how fast that can happen too.
It's quick.
Literally, and then you find yourself in that situation, the worst thing you can do is panic because you don't have much time. Once that water breaks that transom,
it's now.
Buddy, it don't take.
It's now. I drove one to the bottom one time jumping a beaver dam. Of course, it wasn't real deep, but still had a load in it. The front end come up, wham! And you know how a deep diving crankbait works.
Oh, yeah. Once that lip gets under
that lip, it drove it right to the bottom, man. We just stood there. Then we finally got it back up out there and went hunting. But there's all kinds of things can happen. Hung up between 2 trees is a bad deal.
Oh,
you think I can fit through there, and you're trying to line up, and then you say, you want the gouge on it, you whop, and then you see the size go in and it stop. Never a good sign. That's never a good deal. That's a good reason to always run in pairs.
Yeah, have somebody else with another boat.
Even if you don't need 2 boats, if it's 4 guys, two and two, always have another boat to help get you out of there.
No doubt. I can't tell you how many times we have been thankful another boat has been there. Whether you get stuck, run out of gas, fuel line break,
spin
anything. Well, that happened to us 2 years ago. Literally spun a prop, and you're out 4 or 5 miles from the boat ramp.
Oh,
but thank the Lord we had another boat to pull us back, because we would have been
in a bind. Or worse come worse, at least get you to the truck till you could go get some more help or some more tools.
Exactly. Well, you have another boat story too. This is probably one of my all-time favorite stories, just funny wise.
The wreck.
It's
had several
and
wrecks.
Before, don't hear that wrong. Nobody was injured, so it could be funny. But tell us about the time you were not feeling good and you went hunting anyway.
Yes. So another one back in the commercial guiding days, and Mama Rosie wanted me. That changes things about going hunting when your paycheck or your available income to buy groceries depends on that. Mama Rosie had a whole different opinion. No, you need to get up and go hunting. These guys want to go. So we went that morning. A buddy of mine was hunting with us, and they were great customers. And I had the flu. I just was sick, wasn't feeling it, And he said, look, Jimbo, he said, look here, man. We stopped at the store. He said, and I've been drinking a cup of coffee. He said, here's a 20-ounce diet Mountain Dew. And he had, I don't know how many different kinds of cold medicines he had. He said, well, take some of this, take some of this, take some of that, and drink that, man, you'll be fine. And there was 2 of us running up that morning. My old buddy Trey Crawford was running one boat and driving one of my trucks, and I was driving my old Suburban pulling the other boat. And I took all this stuff he tells me to take, and we're on our way to the boat landing. And I remember Treybo passing me. We get up to the boat land. He said, "Dang, Jimbo," he said, "you was going 25 miles an hour." I thought I was doing 70. I said, "Okay." And I was thinking all the while, I said, well, when I get out, get the boat in, get the cold wind in my face, I feel better.
Yeah.
I wake up, I feel better. So we get the boats in the water. We get everybody situated. We're heading down the river. This is before we had lights mounted on the front of the boat. So, you hold one spotlight way up in there and you get your trim adjusted, wham, we're going down the river and we're going, everything's good. We make this turn, make that turn. And I got kind of discombobulated. I always would turn my light and I would follow my light, right?
Yeah.
So I knew the river made a hard left right there. And I kept trying to turn and just things weren't right.
Your brain and body were doing two different things.
Brain and body was not meshing at all. And I was running, had her cotted back pretty good. And when I realized I couldn't turn, I said, "All right, boys, hang on. We fixing to crash." I just cut the throttle, dropped the light, covered my head, and we went wham, bam, wham. People were down in the boat, and we bounced off through the woods. I don't know how far. Finally, we got stopped, and that woke me up. Nobody was hurt. Everything was okay. Dog was still in the boat, and everybody was fine. The only thing was hurt was my pride. And we got turned around back out there and caught up with everybody. And they said, "Hey, Jimbo, how was that ride out through the woods?" So I appreciate your help, But that was a fun one. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Thankfully, I had always clued everybody in. So, all right, guys, we get in the boat. If we start through the woods, keep your hands inside the boat and do not grab a limb.
Yeah.
And they did, because some of the worst things could happen.
Oh, yeah, you tried
it's kind of like when you're walking through the woods, if I'm right behind you hold a limb, let me go through, being a nice guy. You do that in the woods, and you're going to break somebody's nose.
Real quick, like.
Nothing worse than about a finger-size green oak limb.
Get that.
Catch you right under the nose on about a
man.
20-degree morning will guarantee to cause you to tear up.
That's like a scooter to the ankle type deal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have a boat story, too. Again, it was me and my brother, and we were hunting a place down in Arkansas, some public ground, and going in, everything was great. Well, while we hunted, from the time that we had came in to the time that we left, the water had rose a substantial amount. Okay, like it had come up a good amount. Well, anyway, we were not really at a point in our careers, waterfowl-wise, that we paid attention to that kind of stuff. Like we may have noticed, man, the water came up. But what you don't realize, now, a lot of the things that you could see coming in, you won't be able to see coming out, even though it's daylight,
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, we were coming out, and there was some cypress. We knew that, there's some cypress knees in this area, whatever. Well, they were hidden now, because that water had rose a good bit. Well, anyway, we're coming out. Thank the Lord we didn't have her pinned back, but we were still going probably 20 miles an hour, which, that ain't just scalding it, but that didn't just slow,
No.
But we got to a point where let off of it a little bit. Well, anyway, we come around a corner, and it was about like one of those scenarios where we knew that we could make these two trees, plenty of space, but it was two, I'm talking about mammo jammo cypress trees. One of those that, buddy, she's been around a long time. And anyway, sure enough, we had the boat going, and Michael, my brother, was driving, and we hit one of those cypress knees, and it kicked that, mud motor out of the water. And once that propeller's out of the water, you can't, until it gets back down.
You have no control whatsoever.
Zero. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get it back down. Well, we were going 20 miles an hour. And once we hit that cypress knee, boom, that motor kicked out, and there was no control. And, buddy, there wasn't nothing between us and that cypress tree but air and opportunity. And that opportunity was to square that bad girl up.
And she didn't move, did she?
She didn't budge a lick.
No.
But let me tell you what did.
The boat.
Was that compartment at the front that my legs went slam through.
Ooh.
I'm talking about, and we had an old F&F, flat bottom boat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, thank the Lord, I had already told myself, because I was riding in a kind of a weird spot of the boat, and I was like, if we hit something, I need to kind of be prepared. But, buddy, when I hit, my legs literally went through the deck of the boat. Kid you not, punched it out.
Oh.
And I will never forget this. It it's almost like you said, once that guy shot over your head, you sat there for a minute like, am I okay? Because your adrenaline is so high that you don't know if you're hurting. You don't know if you're fine. And I can just remember thinking, I looked down and about from my middle of thigh down, I couldn't see my legs. They're just in the front of the boat. And I literally said, I'm like, am I paralyzed? Am my legs broke? Because I mean, you
can't see them.
You can't. And I was just like, they're up in there somewhere. So literally, my brother's outside of the boat, swimming back. Our camera's floating off. Michael finally gets back in the boat, and he literally has to grab me by my wader straps, pull me out. And I kid you not, it may have been me overthinking it, but for the first couple minutes, I could not move my legs. I don't know if I was so stunned. I don't know if I had already psyched myself out enough where I thought my legs were broke. But I can remember being like, Michael was like, he was literally sitting over me. He was like, just move your feet. Just move your feet. And I was like, I'm trying. He's like, move them. And finally, I can wiggle my feet, and he's like, we're good. And he said, man, all I could think about is I've done ruined Matt's baseball career. Here my brother is,
Dang.
But that goes back to us saying, you got to be careful driving boats. And we were being careful. But it's just like people tell you, it don't matter how careful you are if you're not aware of what's going on and you're not making a effort to water level, stumps, logs, knowing where you're running. That's so key because you got a lot of people now, man, they'll run a river. They don't know the current. They don't know where that log shows or don't show at water levels. So it's so important to be careful, be so careful driving a boat because in an instant, it can change in an instant.
Mm-hmm. And just pay attention to that water too. I can talk about other boat wrecks, but I was running the cash a couple times this year. Water was on the fall, and if you just learn to watch how that current moves, it'll tell you what's under there, or tell you where to be careful. Yep. And I always try to, till I really know the run I'm making, I try to take it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Till I know what's there, and it can change every day. You never know when something's going to float in. Had an instance several years ago. I think it was on New Year's Day. I forget what year because we made a note of it. And I got a picture of it. I hair lipped my 1754 pretty good and run up this old logging road and looking for a spot to hunt. I said, gosh dang it, there's somebody there. And I had just run in there on step. I said, oh crap. So I spun around, going to leave, probably a little frustrated. I hit the gas. About the time the bow laid down on step, I was hitting the trim button. Wham! Motor kicked up.
Oh, no.
My nephew and I was in the boat. No control. Boat took a hard left. Center punched a tree. Only thing kept him from getting thrown out was his head. He hit his head on the tree. That's kind of funny. I got the motor pushed back into the water. The fuel tank broke the fuel line off. And I said, God dang, man, we was about in a bad spot there. People come, you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I get the boat pumped out, and I take the fuel line. I just stick it down in the gas tank and pump it up. By God, she run, so, okay, we're going to go. We went and killed some ducks that morning, but that year, I think, when was that? 2016, 17? Anyway.
Yeah.
It was a bad start to the year anyway.
Oh, no doubt.
But it happens. You just never know.
And it's just, again, being careful. And our listeners out there, I know it almost sounds like a dad telling kids, but it's so important. Boats are so dangerous, so dangerous. Just be aware.
Y'all heard there was really bad wreck on Cache River this year, and that's just being careful.
It is.
I don't know all the circumstances of what went on or what happened. Prayers to the family of the injured folks there. Just, man, be careful.
No doubt. Well, shifting gears a little bit, if you've ever spent some time in the woods, there's probably been a time you've got turned around a little bit.
Man.
And as well as I do, you can get turned around faster than a bottle cap spinning on a plastic floor.
Yeah, especially if it's foggy. But it doesn't have to be foggy. You can. I kind of used to always pride myself on knowing where I was at. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But here's a good one for you. So this is going back way back, the early days of GPSs. So Rosie had got me a GPS for Christmas. All I can tell you, I remember it was a Garmin. It was a big, long, black device. And this was after duck season, looking for something to do. Water was up. And I wanted to go look around places I'd been hunting, but maybe do a little scouting around. For sure. You know, I always thought best time to scout for places to hunt is when nobody's around. It's after season.
No
it's
doubt.
a good time to go look. Anyway, she said, well, I'll go. It's a pretty after late winter.
Yeah.
Weather kind of like we're having now. Beautiful day, sunshine, water's up.
Perfect day to get out.
Perfect day to get out and mess around. She said, well, I'll go with you. I said, well, cool. So we get up in the woods, nice river ride, you know, a few ducks around. We easing through the woods. I'm pointing this hole, that hole, places we hunt. And I said, well, I'm going to take off. I want to walk out this ridge and I want to go check some stuff. And I want, you know, play with this thing. She said, well, I'm just going to stay in the boat and read a book. Cool. So I get out and I get my device turned on. And normally I'd have took a compass bearing on the way I was going, you know, and been no big deal. But I said, no, this thing's going to tell me where I'm going, what I'm doing, everything. I did not know at the time that it would not. So I take off walking, and I'm walking, and I'm watching it's drawing me this line where I'm going. But this is before there was a map in the background, right?
Yeah,
you know,
it's just a line.
It's just a line on the screen.
Yeah.
It's between you make your own points. So I get up there and I find one. So okay, I know this spot, and I go over here. So that's cool. So I'm walking and going, and I'm here and there, and I'm watching this thing, and I'm looking down most all the time. I'm not looking up and not looking behind me. And I finally make my loop, and I thought, well, I better start working my way back towards the boat. I've been up here for a while. So I turn around and I start back where I think was the boat, and I look up and look around. I'm like, this don't look right. So I said, I need to go that way. So I'm walking and walking. I start running out of water.
Oh, boy.
I'm like,
This
I
ain't
know
good.
this ain't right. So I said, well, let's walk this way. And I keep walking and walking out. Now it's too deep. I'm
This
like,
ain't right.
This ain't right either. And there's supposed to be a big cypress tree that you can just always see. It's taller than everything else, and it's your landmark.
Yeah.
And I'm not finding my landmark. So I keep,
This ain't good.
this ain't a bit good. This ain't a bit good. And I kind of know roughly direction wise the general compass direction of where the boat should be to where I'm at, but not 100% which end of it is, because I know if I get there's a place you could cross a ridge and be on the wrong ridge, and now you're really screwed, right? Boy. So I'm working my way back and forth, and nothing looks right. And finally, like 2 hours later, that kind of looks familiar. So,
I know that tree.
I know. So Rosie, ain't heard a word from her. She's been in her book, right? So I finally hollered, Rosie. Nothing. I yelled a little longer, and I heard, what? I finally got her to yell again, so I got a line. So then I start trying to make my way on that line, and I hit another deep spot. I said, how in the world did I make it there? And anyway, I backtracked around back, found my ridge, and got back to the boat. But I think it was about near dark time we got out of there. I was severe. I wasn't lost, but I was severely turned around.
And it is so easy, especially when you get like the White River Bottom and those big hardwoods, or any type of really anywhere with a lot of a hardwood bottom or something like that. If you just get turned around for half a second and you ain't really paying attention, or you don't have a device that you can really follow. And nowadays, a lot of the things make it so easy, but man, everything looks the same.
Everything.
Same.
And had I studied that GPS a little bit, I would have known that I could have made a point at the boat. And
I see.
No, I wasn't that smart. I didn't think you had to.
Hey, what do they say? You live and you learn.
I did that too.
You live and you learn.
A big lesson. Them are the best ones learned right there.
No doubt. Well, Mr. Jim, I can't thank you enough for just taking time to hop on and tell some stories with myself, and also for our listeners to hear. I can't thank y'all all so much. We also want to thank Mr. Chris Isaac, our podcast producer, and also Rachel over here that is also helping us with the podcast. And Mr. Jim, thank you so much. And thank you also so much to our Ducks Unlimited podcast listeners for tuning in to this episode of the Ducks Unlimited podcast.
Thank you for listening to the DUPodcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit ducks.org/DUPodcast. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks.